I've just come back from Broome, which is a port on the West Australia's Kimberley coast, known for pearling, tourism, and it's a base for the oil and gas industry. In the dry season, the warm climate lures southerners to escape winter, who arrive by road or through its international airport. Now, on the northern boundary of Broome Airport is Gus Winckel Road. Brian Hernan, in a talk in 2016 entitled Broome Air Raid, mentioned Gus Winckel, so I knew the name, but not a lot about the backstory of Gus or why a road would be named in his honour. Gus was born in 1912 in Mentok in the Dutch East Indies, now modern-day Indonesia. In 1935, he enlisted in their navy when he decided to join the Netherlands East Indies Air Force. At age 23, he qualified, became a pilot flying Lockheed Lodestars, ferrying freight around the Dutch East Indies in the years 1935 to 1942. In World War II, as the Japanese advanced southwards, this Dutch flight lieutenant was tasked to bring fleeing Dutch refugees from Bandung through Broome to Perth in that Lockheed Lodestar. His was just one of 22 aircraft in Broome on March the 3rd, 1942, in the morning when 9 Japanese Zeros appeared and conducted a surprise attack on the flying boats on Roebuck Bay and then aircraft on the airfield. These 9 Zeros made the raid from Kopang, a recently captured airfield in East Timor. When Japanese planes appeared overhead, Captain Gus happened to be servicing the plane's Colt 7.99 machine gun. The Zeros started their attack on the flying boats in Broome's Roebuck Bay, killing 76 Dutch refugees, including many children. Those on the flying boats faced death by bullets, fire, drowning and sharks. Winckel used this time to get his passengers to safety on Broome's airfield, and knowing his plane was a sitting duck, he removed one of the mounted machine guns and 2 belts of ammunition and positioned himself at a safe distance and waited for the inevitable Japanese fighters to turn to the airfield. He fired from the hip, steadying the gun by resting the barrel on his arm. Winckel said, when visiting Broome for the 60th anniversary,
"Well, it landed in Broome and I was taxiing back to the place where I was going to be refilled with petrol. I asked the attendant, after 7.5-hour flight, and I said, 'Hey, is the RAAF flying today?' And he said, 'No, they are not.' So I said to him, he said, 'Raise the alarm, the Japs are coming.' And he looked at me and he laughed and he said, 'No, they can't come that far south anyhow.' But if he would have had and sounded the alarm straight away, a lot of things would have been a lot easier. I knew what was going to happen. So and I said to Charlie Fontaine, that was my mechanic, I said, 'Open the bomb bay doors in the front, and throw all the luggage on the floor, on the ground, because they're going to shoot at my plane and try to shoot it, to burn it.' He says, so then their luggage is safe on the ground. Since about 2 weeks, we had an extra 2 machine guns at the rear end of the Lockheed Lodestars. And I went there and I took one of them out. And my wireless operator, Bill Max, he got the box of the 400 rounds of ammunition, 303, and he put it onto the machine gun. And the machine gun was an air-cooled one, but it was also at the ring side. I took the gun and I went about 30 meters from the aircraft away up to the field. And there came 1 Zero, very low, came over, and I gave him the full blast of the machine gun. And I knew I hit him, and he was laughing, but I thought to myself, not for long anyhow. So here you are, and he disappeared, and he was shot down, finished. 90 degrees, he came from and just in front of me. Have that as a present from me. Because of them, of course, I lost everything but I had in bundles. You had to hold the barrel by your hand, see? and being air-cooled, and all the bullets that went through it, so it got getting quite hot. Several other Zeros that came over the field. Several, see, until the whole lot was finished. And my hands were really, really painful, burned, you know. And there was a little later, there was an American doctor, and he saw to my hands, and he put some stuff on my hands to ease the pain a bit. Other Zeros I shot at had to make a crash landing near Roti Island, because I must have hit his tanks, because they have no self-dealing tanks, and he had no more petrol, and he had to land over there. He attacked the flying boats first in the harbor. See, they all had their 20 millimeter cannons and their normal 303 ammunition. So they hit them first with the 20 millimeter cannons, you know, and sunk them. And then a lot of people got killed and maimed, and it was really, really terrible. And then they came to the aerodrome. See, so I had the time to get all that thing, get that gun out, and fixed it until they came back.
Warrant Officer Osamu Kudu was shot down, and Yoseo Matsumoto ditched off Roti Island when his Zero ran out of fuel as a result of bullet holes in the wing tanks. Of the 9 Zeros, all but one received bullet holes caused by Allied gunfire. Captain Takeo Shibata, who ordered the Broome raid, said that most of his pilots did not survive the war. At the time of the Broome raid, there were 135 residents in Broome, as well as 46 American military, 132 Dutch and 25 British personnel. In the 2 weeks prior to the raid, 8,000 refugees staged through Broome, and as many as 57 aircraft were there at one time. Meanwhile, Japanese forces were taking over Java and threatening the Allied headquarters at Bandung. On the 5th of March, the Allied commander decided that several senior RAF and RAAF officers had to be evacuated from Bandung. Winckel was chosen as the pilot. He protested the decision, arguing that his lack of rest would hinder his chances of finding Bandung in the dark, as he did not have any electronic aids. However, Winckel was seen to be one of the most experienced pilots because of his terrain knowledge as a flight instructor at Bandung and his recent refugee flights. Another factor was that his Lodestar, although it had been damaged in the attack on Broome, was considered the most suitable plane for the evacuation mission. Winckel flew to Java, where he managed to land his plane at night on a road lit by Jeep headlights. He picked up 14 passengers, refueled the plane, and successfully returned to Australia. Broome is not the only Australian town that fondly remembers Gus Winckel. Following the Broome air raid, Mr. Winckel was based out of Moruya in New South Wales, from where he flew patrols of the eastern Australian seaboard. It was on one of these patrols that Gus Winckel is credited with sinking a Japanese submarine. Post-war records show the Japanese did not suffer a lost submarine on the east coast. The only full-sized submarine to be sunk was the I-124 off the coast of Darwin. The expected invasion of Australia following these air raids on Darwin, Wyndham, Broome, Columbaroo, Derby, Port Hedland, Onslow, Exmouth Gulf and Port Gregory didn't eventuate, as the Battle of the Coral Sea in May 1942 and the Battle of Midway in June 1942 checked the Japanese expansion into the South Pacific. Winckel flew to the Dutch East Indies in late 1945 as part of an unauthorised recovery of Allied prisoners of war and internees mission. Winckel was searching for his mother and sister who had stayed behind, but was unable to find them. Sometime later, another pilot flew over the Banjo Barrow internment camp and saw the name Nini written on the ground with flour. This was the name of Winckel's sister, and to draw the attention of her brother, she had written the name. She assumed he was looking for her. Shortly afterwards, Winckel himself flew over the camp and dropped a letter to her, following 4 days later by a supply of food. Today, a statue of Gus Winckel stands in Moruya to remember his bravery and that of the other airmen who fought in World War II in Australia. Gus Winckel was awarded the Dutch Gold Cross for his wartime efforts. He died in New Zealand, aged 100, in 2013. Truly a man worth remembering.